Over to you, Walt.
Thanks, Carson, and thank all of you for joining us today. We really appreciate it and appreciate your interest and support of the Energy Star program. My name is Walt Hunnison. I'm with the US EPA's Energy Star program here in Washington, D.C., and we'd like to welcome you to this session, which is part of a series that we're doing that features and highlights some of the best practices of companies that have earned the Energy Star Partner of the Year award. And so before we get going, I'd just like to just give you a quick background on the Energy Star Partner of the Year award, because it's one of the most prestigious awards that the Energy Star program offers. This award is awarded annually to companies that demonstrate outstanding excellence in their energy management programs. And we look for companies that are real leaders, that are defining best practices, but also partners that are active within the Energy Star community and also demonstrate excellent examples of communicating the value of energy management and energy efficiency within their companies, as well as to their customers, their stakeholders, and just broadly externally as well. And so you're going to hear some of that today from some of our excellent presenters who are part of this elite class of companies that have won the Energy Star Partner of the Year award. And just to put a plug in for some of our other webinars within this series, we're going to take a little summer break and we'll come back in September and start up our series again, looking at innovative technologies. We'll be focusing on battery storage in October. We'll look at some building controls in November. We'll be talking about communication strategies, and we'll wind up with looking at some strategies around developing and upgrading your buildings using LEDs. So if you want to learn more about any of these webinars and the series and the speakers, click on that link there, or when you get the copy of the slide deck, or just simply find it on the Energy Star website and you can learn more about it. But let's get into what we're going to be talking about today. So we're focusing on playbooks and guides, which are a really useful set of tools that can help really any energy management program with implementation and fostering an energy culture. When I think about like some of the key steps and often some of the key challenges with an energy efficiency program, a lot of times it comes around to figuring out like the right action plans for a site, or getting those sites that even if when you've created an action plan to implement them, or just getting people bought in or recognizing that they have a role in energy management. And so developing guides like employee guides to help raise awareness about individual roles for energy efficiency, whether it's at home or at work, helps to really get people thinking about their responsibility to support energy efficiency initiatives within your organization. And playbooks, they take it even another step further. As the name suggests, they actually list out things that sites and facilities and individuals can do. And all this, really, what it helps to do is to make energy management a team sport. And that's a key concept I think you'll hear today, is that, you know, if you're an energy manager or you're running an energy management program, you need a lot of people involved, need a lot of support, and these are great tactics and strategies for fostering that. So we've got a great set of speakers lined up today from companies with outstanding programs. We're going to hear first from Tom Payuko. Tom is the Executive Director for Global Engineering, Energy Engineering at Allergan, which is now part of ABEV. And Tom, in addition to being the energy manager there, has a unique distinction of actually achieving the Energy Star Partner of the Year award at 3 different companies, and I'll let him tell you what those companies were. From there, Tom's going to talk about employee guides and why he has helped develop these and some of the results he's seen from putting them out. From there, we're going to switch to looking at playbooks, and we're going to hear first from Kirby Brensel, who's the Assistant Vice President of Sustainability and ESG at Welltower. And Kirby's going to talk about how they've used playbooks to really inform their building operators across their portfolio. And they've got a pretty big and diverse portfolio of buildings, and so they'll tell you more about that. Then we'll wrap up from hearing from Dave Gutierrez and Scott Jordan from Lockheed Martin. Dave is the environmental energy engineer on the energy team at Lockheed Martin, and Scott Jordan is the president of Building Integrated Services there. And they're going to give you some really interesting details on their approach to developing a playbook. And I think you'll find, the level of detail very interesting as far as, what you can do when you really roll these out, and rolling them out across a diverse set of facilities, because Lockheed Martin has a lot of different type of facility types. So that's enough for me. I'm going to turn it over to Tom, and Tom's going to tell us about how Allergan has fostered or is fostering an energy efficiency culture through guidebooks. So Tom?
Okay, thanks, Walt. Yeah, so just to kind of pick up where what the tease that Walt had thrown out there was, I had previously worked for Shearing Plow, and then Shearing Plow was purchased by Merck in 2009. So I also worked with Merck and came to Allergan in 2015. So all three of those companies were Energy Star Partners of the Year, Sustained well, Shearing Plow was just a Partner of the Year. The other two have been Sustained Excellence. And so hopefully I'm working on my fourth with AbbVie. And my topic today is going to be the Allergan Home Energy Tips booklet. So I'm presenting this, and I'm using the presentation logos from Allergan. I just thought it was appropriate to kind of put it in that context because it fits the energy program that we had at Allergan. As Walt said, I'm the Executive Director, Global Energy Engineering, located in New Jersey. So in May of this year, AbbVie acquired Allergan, and we combined to become the fourth largest biopharmaceutical company. Basically, combined sales of roughly $50 billion, 47,000 employees. We have manufacturing facilities all over the world, 14 different countries. The acquisition from our side increased our footprint by about a factor of 3, and increased our energy usage and cost also by about a factor of 3. So that definitely moved us up on the curve a little bit. But as anybody who knows the pharmaceutical industry, the pharmaceutical industry is not a very energy intensive business. Energy represents maybe 1 to 2%, maybe 3 on a good day of cost of goods sold. It's less than 0.25% of revenue, so it's not a high priority from a company standpoint. So why have an energy program? Why even mess with it? Well, a lot of it comes down to most of the pharma companies that I know all have environmental responsible programs that are built around sustainability. So that becomes the driver. And while there are some more ways nowadays to reduce your carbon footprint, certainly reducing your energy consumption is a great way to get there. Allergan had two goals of in particular importance up for this slide. One was an energy goal. It was a 20% reduction by 2020 on a 2015 baseline, and then also a greenhouse gas emissions goal, which was a similar 20% reduction of CO2 equivalents by 2020 on a 2015 baseline. AbbVie has a slightly different but very similar set of goals. So their goals go out to 2025, and they're 25% reduction with the same baseline. We will actually meld in pretty quickly and pretty nicely. It's just for us, this was our goal. But the other beauty of having an energy program is, while energy is not a big cost item for us, it's certainly, by reducing your energy consumption, you certainly reduce your cost, and that never hurts. And it also takes out some of the volatility. Although the energy markets lately have been pretty low priced and relatively stable, it's win-win. So we also, just to kind of round out the goals, besides the energy and climate goal, Allergan also had a water goal, which was a 20% reduction at 3 sites in particular, 3 water scarce sites: Brazil, Irvine, California, and Waco, Texas. Same time frame, 2015 baseline by 2020, And we also had a waste goal, 20% reduction compared to 2015, and then eliminate all waste to landfill from manufacturing operations. I would say these are pretty typical goals for most companies nowadays. So for me, everything kind of revolves around my strategic energy roadmap, and this is just my take on the, a typical initiative roadmap that certainly mimics the Energy Star, plan that Walt had showed, which is a, continuous improvement model. It also pretty well aligns to the ISO 50001 guidance. So the two main pillars for this roadmap, and I think for any initiative, are number one, management commitments. You need to have management aligned and in favor, behind your initiative, especially in like I said, in pharma, because it's so many priorities and there's so many things going on that it's really important that management backs this. Conversely, the other pillar is communication and recognition. So to tell people what you're doing, why you're doing it, and hopefully what your expectations are, and then to reward people who live up to those expectations. You could almost add marketing, and that's really what the Home Energy Tips booklet was meant to do, was be a marketing tool to help build, some awareness around our program, and also to build an energy efficiency culture within the company. So I have a basic premise, basic principle that says it's very similar to a safety initiative, that everyone uses energy, some more than others. So we have three basic facility types, if you will. We have, pharmaceutical manufacturing, and that's going to be the most energy intensive. R&D, laboratory facilities, and those who don't deal with lab facilities, they typically are 3 to 5 times the energy intensity of a typical office building. So not quite as intensive as manufacturing, but certainly use a lot of energy. And then we have quite a lot of office space throughout the world. And so each person does impact energy. Like I said, some more than others. A guy on the shop floor obviously has more impact on how much energy we're using than somebody in an office building. But certainly everybody can do their part to try and be as efficient and conserve as much energy as possible. Equally to that is not only does everyone use energy, everyone uses energy all the time. It's a 24/7 operation, if you will. So we use energy at work and at home. And here again, the analogy to safety, everyone has a part to play in maintaining a safe work environment and a safe home environment. You're not safe at work and then not safe at home, vice versa. So the thought came into my head that, well, let's try and play off of that then. Instead of harping or pushing, energy efficiency at work, let's try and turn it to give the colleagues a chance to apply some of these principles at home, save themselves some money, put some money in their pocket, kind of develop that efficiency culture, and then hopefully they'll bring that to work. Once they realize that it's not that difficult and that little things equal big actions and big savings, they'll start to apply those at home and then bring those into work. So we put together this Home Energy Tips booklet, and we branded it, kind of around our values. Our values were, build bridges, power ideas, act fast, and drive results. So we named the book Conserving Energy and Saving Money, Powering Ideas for Efficiency. So kind of playing off, one of our key corporate values. And we use the Energy Tips booklet, besides the Energy Tips, also as a way to kind of highlight the energy program, the Allergan Energy Program, and build some awareness around that to let people know that we even had a program. So we had a page, of what the program's about, and, a message from our executive VP of operations and the VP of engineering and myself. We talked about our partnership with Energy Star. And then I just gave a copy of the table of contents. You can see that we have tips about windows and home energy audits and assessments, heating and cooling, water heating, lighting, appliances, office and home, and especially in today's work from home environment, you know, having an efficient home office and home electronics is really important. Vehicle driving even, and then water. And these are some of the tips that we presented in the book, you know, tried to make it colorful and informative, and some simple tips, like things like, one of my favorites is when you have dinner and you've, you know, heated something in the oven, don't just, when you're done eating, automatically put it in the refrigerator, let it cool down with the ambient temperature before you put it in the refrigerator and make the refrigerator cool it down and work harder. And then some more complicated things like window sealing and putting in the right efficiency of insulation in your attics. So we gave the gamut of some easy to do and some more impactful but a little more costly and more difficult, if you will, energy tips. So the key was how to distribute this book. So I printed up about 1,500 books. My original focus was, we had a large office location in Madison, New Jersey, of about 1,500 people, and those are the people that I really wanted to market this program to, because we weren't doing a lot of things in that office building, and I also thought it was kind of a corporate headquarters, so therefore it should be the example of, you know, what we can do and achieve. And so I originally thought of doing a desk drop, but I guess desk drops have become, kind of passe, and I guess rightfully so. I talked to the facilities guy to ask him if we could set up a desk drop, and he said that they had done a similar kind of publication for something, you know, like an anniversary or something that we had going on. And when they did the desk drop, they found that like 85% of all those pamphlets that they printed ended up in the garbage. So I didn't want to have that happen. That seemed like counterproductive to what the whole sustainability effort. So we were able to do these things called light fairs. Now in New Jersey, the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities sponsors a company to come in and sell LED light bulbs at a significantly reduced price. So I thought this might be a good opportunity to also incorporate the home energy tips booklet. So the game plan was, for every purchase, we were going to, and give the employee, their whatever they bought, plus the home energy tips booklets. Plus we put a stack of booklets out in the lobby and at all the tables for people to grab. And since then, I've shipped booklets to some of our manufacturing facilities to hand out and put in the lobby. We've also used them at treasure hunts as something to give away. I think, me personally, maybe it's a little old-fashioned, but I kind of like getting something handed to me, and then, the gift of savings is kind of included in there. So you could, if you go ahead and do some of those things, you'll actually probably save several $100s a year. Just some of the statistics on the light fairs. We had 369 colleagues, so that was at least, I got rid of at least 400 of the booklets and that, but they bought almost 6,400 Energy Star LED light bulbs, which we estimated, which on an annual basis would save almost 450,000 kilowatt hours, almost $70,000 a year. And here again, for them, for their home use. And then as important, we would save 672,000 pounds of CO2, which is equivalent to 66 cars. Because LEDs have a long life, those savings added up to even more. So almost $800,000 in electricity cost over the life of the bulb, which is probably a good 10 years or so, maybe even more. So I think I'll answer questions later, but that's pretty much all I had. And with that, I'm going to turn the ball over to Kirby.
Great, thanks, Tom. And yeah, if you could hand it over to Kirby, and Kirby, if you could just make sure you unmute yourself. You can tell us about your playbooks.
Awesome. Thanks, Walt, and thanks, Tom. And thank you to Energy Star for having me here today, and Welltower being honored as an Energy Star Partner of the Year again this year. That's just great. So Just as we talked about, we'll be talking a little bit about our playbook that we developed this last year and rolled out. First of all, our safe harbor statement. Luckily for you, I will not read this, but let's assume that you did. Over the next 15 minutes, I plan to give you an overview of our business, our focus on ESG, how we leverage the performance playbook as part of a larger engagement approach with our operators and properties around sustainability, an engagement approach which also, I should say, leveraged Energy Star, an Energy Star portfolio manager, thank you, and some of the further path ahead, including the results, tips, and final thoughts. So Welltower at a glance. Welltower is a $52 billion NYSE-listed public company that addresses some massive challenges facing society by serving as the world's largest health and wellness real estate platform, while at the same time delivering consistent sector-leading financial performance that is driving value to our shareholders. We've also demonstrated a commitment to the environment, diversity and equality, and good governance that is much more than just checking boxes and receiving awards. We're tangibly driving financial performance by focusing on the triple bottom line, so people, planet, and profit. As I said at the start, ESG for us is more than just a box-ticking exercise at Welltower. We're actively working towards our goals for a 10% reduction in GHG emissions, energy, and water use by 2025, and doing so through numerous programs, including our focus on green building certifications, such as Energy Star, LEED, Ironman green leases, where we recently were recognized for our efforts as a gold level green lease leader by the Institute for Market Transformation with the support from the U.S. Department of Energy's Better Building Alliance, and sustainable building related purchases, which are just a few of our many sustainability focused programs, which also includes our successful issuance of a green bond just this last year as another example. Bottom line, our sustainability results and goals have earned Welltower a place in the Dow Jones World Sustainability Index amongst other accolades, but our investors have also significantly benefited from these initiatives. The focus today is on environmental, but did just want to give a quick allusion to our S&G aspects of ESG as well, as I truly feel they're all interconnected. So while Welltower is a company with true gender parity across our workforce, I'm also proud of the fact that 50% of our senior leadership team is made up of women and minorities. And we've also made great strides in D&I, building off of our initial endeavors with our women's initiative to the launch of our diversity council just this last year, as well as the creation of our AFAM employee network group. And while all these endeavors, as well as our strides in employee development and corporate philanthropy, have earned us many accolades too, we take social responsibility beyond just the walls of our business. This also includes a focus on great governance, which we feel leads to good business. But it's really, we feel that it's focusing on all these elements of ESG together, as well as other aspects that help Welltower to truly be successful. So with that said, I'd like to share a bit more around one specific program that joined with others to help to support Welltower's engagement around ESG, our performance playbook. The Welltower Performance Playbook, a guide for senior housing efficiency and excellence, is intended to be a user-friendly tool and resource to help our operators and properties find ways to reduce utility costs, increase NOI, and enhance comfort for our residents and staff. So it was developed really to support our operators and properties' efforts in driving efficiency and excellence throughout all of our communities. And as you can see, we had a big footprint. It was really created, so we worked on this based on industry experience, including that of our valued partners on this initiative, RETEC, and designed to provide no and low-cost ideas that can be incorporated into daily operations to drive savings as well as improve performance. As saving energy and water, just as Tom shared previously, is not only an important part of our environmental stewardship, but it's also an important part of our financial stewardship and a demonstration to our residents and their families that our commitments are run efficiently and effectively within our communities. We shared this playbook with our operators as part of our sustainability dedicated quarterly update, which in a direct plug, just putting this out there, also included training on Energy Star and Energy Star Portfolio Manager, as well as I did separate individual one-on-ones and follow-ups afterwards on this for other operators that missed it, as well as new ones that were coming on board. In terms of its structure, the Well Tower Performance Playbook contains, first, a savings opportunity survey, which allows users to assess their current state and identify areas where they could use some help to make energy efficiency and operational improvements at their communities. These are really linked so that once a user has completed the survey and identified areas for possible improvements, they can easily refer to the corresponding section of the playbook for help. They also contain a simple overview, which gives a definition, overview of the topic, as well as summary guidance and some initial recommendations. Links to additional tools and resources if more information is desired, such as those highlighted on the right, which are directly tied to this topic and include some excellent tools and resources, including those from Energy Star. And helpful engagement tips to get residents involved, such as the Turn It Off Challenge and treasure hunts alluded to on the right. And I know Tom talked about some as well. As once the residents are engaged, we found that it really helps to keep our staff accountable as well. And then lastly, there are also action plans that can be printed and used as a checklist and or training guide to implement actions that make sense for properties as they do walkthroughs and other similar types of activities. In terms of the path ahead, since our initial rollout, the Performance Playbook has been extremely well received by our properties and our operators with highly positive feedback, as well as shared and distributed further by our operators throughout our various properties. These operators and properties have included it as part of their standard operational programs, which is exactly the kind of adoption that we were hoping for. But additionally, our Performance Playbook has been leveraged by our internal development and other teams as a further point of engagement with operators and properties to demonstrate the value add of working with Welltower, as well as what our focus on sustainability and ESG can bring. But we're not resting on our laurels on this by any means, and we're continuing to work further to tailor these for use in other properties not originally covered by our initial rollout, such as those in countries other than the United States. So for us, Canada and the United Kingdom, as well as other property types, so branching off into our medical office building side of the portfolio. But for those of you listening on the WebEx today, in terms of major lessons learned, so hopefully something you can glean from our or my work on this, I just had a couple recommendations. So the first is really, you want to keep it simple. So you want to tailor this for your audience, and focusing on the basics the first time out is a great way to start. Fully utilize what you have. Don't recreate the wheel, basically. So we had many of these elements already under different areas and resources, as well as found other free, publicly available ones online, and pulled those together to make a great tool that we brought forward. We focused on low cost and no cost first, as although there are definitely other initiatives that can be moved forward 100%. I've always felt that starting with focus on low and no cost can enable some of the easiest and broadest adoption within a portfolio of properties. And, just to stress, these types of initiatives, so for us, they're never kind of a one and done or a sole tool. We always try to integrate these and pair them with others, as well as part of our overall strategy around engagement with our properties and operators. As an example, with what I shared initially, this is just one of many elements that we're working on around engagement with our operators around sustainability, including some of the other great tools and trainings available from Energy Star. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Dave and Scott so you can hear another great example of how to develop playbooks and employee guides for energy efficiency. Thank you. There we go.
Okay.
And thanks, Kirby. And this is Walt. Let me just mention, if you have questions, please use the chat window. And after this next presentation, we'll move over to Q&A.
All right. Oh, I think I went backwards here. Pardon me. Thanks, Kirby and Walt. Again, my name is Dave Gontars, and I'm a member of the Lockheed Martin Corporate Environmental Safety and Health, or ESH, Energy team, and along with my longtime partner, Scott Jordan of Building Integrated Services out in Ohio. We're going to provide a brief overview of the newly developed Energy Water Playbook, which I think Kirby and others may see there are some similarities in ours. Of course, we're a company of a lot of engineers, so keeping it simple, I guess you'll have to be the judge at the end of the 15 minutes here, how simple we kept it. But anyway, you know, this playbook was developed as part of Lockheed's new set of Go Green metrics. And both Scott and I are part of really a small team. It's a large company, but a small team whose charter is to kind of shape and manage the corporation's Go Green program. And, you know, we focus on both the supply and demand side of energy management. Scott and I are mostly on the demand side of things here, along with waste and water. Before we get into the playbook, I'll give you a little overview here of our program. The Lockheed's Go Green program really started back in the kind of the 2007 timeframe, and during that time, the corporation's energy use has been reduced by 25%, and we continue to trend downward, or at least level off, as our production takes a significant ramp upward. Our role lies primarily in identifying and quantifying energy efficiency opportunities across approximately 80 Lockheed Martin sites within the U.S., and that number also includes a few overseas facilities as well. Earlier this year, Lockheed established a new set of Go Green goals, and these goals are meant to extend out to 2030. The goals are separated into 3 separate tiers, and they're designed to work, they kind of work together to ensure success. The first tier is a long-term public-facing goal, and it's intended to cut emissions by 70% by 2030 compared to the 2015 baseline. The second kind of midterm goal resides at the business area level, and there are 4 business areas I'll go over briefly here in a minute. And this pledges to reduce the overall energy intensity by 14% from a 2016 baseline to 2025. Notable that energy intensity is the energy is normalized based on occupancy. And then the third set of goals consists of near-term activities, and each of these activities are designed to support the business areas and ultimately Lockheed in achieving their long-range high-level goals. And the Energy Playbook is one of these 4 key pillars upon which Lockheed Martin's new Go Green goals sit. The tool was developed over the past year by Scott and his team out there in Ohio, and it's designed to be used to identify both best practices and also used to identify areas of opportunity across our buildings and facilities. And you know, these scorecards will then ultimately guide how Lockheed Martin allocates our Go Green program resources. You know, whether it be through manpower or funding for Go Green projects. Initially, the program is being rolled out to the largest energy-using sites across each of the 4 business areas. We just kicked this off here this year. Obviously, it's intended to kind of be a combination of pre-work, over the phone type things, and in-person activities. Obviously, the in-person activities are being hindered at the moment, but we hope to be back underway here with that shortly. And you know, as far as the 4 business areas go, just to give you some idea, for those that aren't aware, you know, we have the aeronautics division. You can kind of think of F-35s and C-130s. There's a space division that deals with satellites, spacecraft, things like that. Missiles and fire control, which is pretty self-explanatory because basically it's missiles, and then rotary and mission systems, or RMS. And this division recently had the Sikorsky helicopter, Sikorsky company kind of folded into it, along with electronics for things such as naval ships and submarines and things of that nature. So that's kind of what goes on. It's certainly a very diverse set of activities, which does make it a little bit of a challenge. You know, when we're talking about how to rate from an energy efficiency standpoint. Many of these sites, as you can imagine, have a number of buildings, you know, some 50, 60 buildings at each site, and we certainly don't plan on, you know, kind of grading every last little building. So we kind of struck a line at any buildings 50,000 square feet or above at the start of the program here. And the intent is to go through each building that meets that criteria. Could be 10, 15, 20 buildings at a given site over the course of a few days or a week. And, you know, that'll allow us to focus our time and attention on the biggest opportunities here. As you'll see, the Energy Star concepts are mimicked in some way, but it's also designed, tailored to meet the wide variety of facilities that we encounter across the business areas. So now I'm going to, before I turn it over to Scott, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the specifics regarding the playbook. You know, the playbook, it's designed to provide a consistent set of criteria and consistent means to rate each building, as I mentioned, over 50,000 square feet, and ultimately each site that we look at using 81 different criteria. So there's where maybe it's not as simple, Kirby, as your playbook is. But, you know, then those 81 individual criteria are divided into 8 major categories, and see listed here in the third bullet. And, you know, a few sample items, you know, like under HVAC equipment, that's a major heading. You'd have air side economizers, you know, pipe and ducts insulated properly, you know, delta T on hot water appropriate, those sorts of things. So again, you imagine about 80 or so of those items. Each line item has a drop down. It's quick. It allows for quick grading, provides a red, yellow, green rating, again, similar to Kirby, what you were, your playbook. And, you know, depending on what type of selection is made, it'll color it either red, yellow, or green automatically. Typically, you know, we'll use some logic that says if it's less than 20% implemented in the building, such as like LED lights, if you got less than 20% of lights converted to LED, you get a red. Greater than 80%, you get a green, and everything in the middle would be rated a yellow. And how that works, you know, once those individual items are scored, they're rolled up, and they then provide an overall grade for each major category, also in the red, yellow, green format. And then ultimately, those grades all together are brought all together and provide the building with a score from 0 to 100, kind of, again, in a similar way to the Energy Star portfolio manager tool would provide. These individual grades for buildings are then brought together where you have multiple buildings at a site to give an overall site score from 0 to 100. So in addition to that, we've kind of developed, as you can see here, a few graphics that kind of enable the user or someone looking at the results to quickly ascertain what you know, where the opportunities are and where the best practices are. We've got the heat maps, and also, as you can see here, a radar diagram. So, you know, we're just started rolling this out. We have one large site under our belt, and we were working on the second in March when everything kind of stopped from a travel standpoint. So now we're kind of working to do all the behind the scenes things we can for the other 3 sites we had planned for 2020. So now that you have a little background on the program and its origin and how it was designed to work, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Jordan, and he'll talk more about how the program is executed, how it complements the Energy Star concepts, and some key points and challenges that we've faced along the way. So Scott, with that, I'm going to hand the baton to you.
Well, thank you very much.
Take it away.
Thanks, Dave. And the program itself that we've worked with is it's been a progress. Just trying to page down a bit. Dave, are you able to move the slide to the next slide?
I don't think so.
Well,
Scott, you could. Yeah, we'll move the slides for you. Just tell us.
Thank you very much. That sounds great. It's only a few slides, and so this is perfect. As you can see by the diagram to the right, this whole tool became a culmination of years of corporate ES&H engagement with the site engineers, BMS technicians, and facility engineers. And this is I'd say over about 15 years, we were working with these sites to develop through a Kaizen type approach. We called it a strategic improvement activity. And that's when we were defining the multi-year plan on how to save energy on these sites. What would be the strategy? What would be the priorities of those items? And so this playbook it's a culmination of, I'll say, 10 plus years of that activity for all these sites of all these buildings and 40 plus events. And that was our starting point, saying, what were the common themes? How would we make a consistent measure across a lot of oddball buildings that maybe don't fit inside the standard box that would be more easily done as if they were just all office buildings? And so Dave is right that we tried to keep it simple, but if you look at some of these things that we were targeting, they were down into the details, and they were looking at different control sequences, and it was such a diverse set of windows that we were looking through that I think it created a very nice tool for us. The sites do get the building score, and the Corporate Esh team does schedule events with the facility team. We're doing so much work prior to getting there, because I would say these playbooks are 70% done before we even arrive on site, because through building management systems, through past knowledge of these sites, through wonderful phone calls with the site teams, we're able to get a great deal of information so that when we do get there, it is, I'll say it's at 3.5 days to get through about 15 or 16 of these buildings, but it's certainly under a week to close these off. We can tabulate it, and what's nice about this is, as you can see, that they're very visual. The results are very visual, so we can get it by the building, by the site, and as we progress through the program, by the business area, which we hope will really be able to direct these capital projects. And when I say capital projects, I mean not just the special Go Green funds that you're targeting great projects, but also in everyday capital that's happening on that site. And one of the themes that we keep preaching through the sites at each one that we go to is that, a good facility strategy, it really results itself in just a series of very small good decisions. Because it's rare that the corporation says, hey, you know what, I'll give you all the money you need to get where you need to go. A lot of times it's years of just making those incremental great decisions. And then what's nice about the tool is that it's flexible, so that if the building isn't set up so it doesn't have hot water, that's okay. The tool automatically takes that out of the grading system, and it goes from there. And I'm going to go finish this slide by just going back to those 3 components. What I liked very much about the process is that because we were looking through building engineers, the engineers, and then the corporate team and the building management teams, I think for a lot of the solutions that we're promoting had buy-in on all levels. So with that, next slide, please. Now the Energy Playbook comparison. Yes, we do use Energy Star for the Lockheed Martin portfolio in as many places as we possibly can. This just allowed us to get to, it allowed the building to be compared to itself. So if you have an oddball building that's making an F-35 and it's a mile long and it's extremely complex, this allows that building to be judged, to watch that building grow in relationship to its own skin. And it also allows us, because we're doing some industrial buildings, we're able to dig down into some compressed air issues and some issues that would maybe not be standard in a common building. The playbook does target energy conservation measures and tactics that would improve it. It highlights areas through these great visualizations, and the detailed scoring just gives you that look. And we're really using this as a part of our go-forward plan on how we would direct. How do we want to direct not only our effort, but our dollars, et cetera. And it's a great tool to rise up through the facility ranks, meaning at a higher level executive, to see, okay, this is why we're doing what we're doing. Next slide, please. Our process, the foundation of the playback was these Kaizen-based events that we talked about. How do we look at these? How do we look at accomplishing energy efficiency and look at it through a lot of windows and have incremental buy-in? We definitely went through the business areas to make sure we had some. If they had any checklists that they were using, of course, we wanted to get their buy-in, because there are major, each one is a major target audience. And then there's a Department of Energy program called the EADC, Energy Analysis Diagnostic Center. We, of course, integrated a lot of those themes with it as well. And then we referenced the energy, industry guidelines. Again, so we did that to make sure we weren't just working in our wonderful vacuum. Challenges of this is that we are refining our checklist as we go because, we want to make sure we're always just monitoring pertinent items. And so that's what we're looking at the first time. We want to ensure fairness and consistency across the board. So we are working as a team as a corporate ESH team. We are monitoring and working with the tool on the site. We haven't handed it over to, I'll call it the smaller sites yet. We're using, of course, the user-friendly interfaces with it. It's very easy, quick to use. We're trying to even streamline that more right into our overall database for Lockheed Martin. And it does require some site team buy-in because it does take some time to start getting this information and pulling it together. We have found extreme a lack of resistance for that, but you do have to fight for their days or their phone calls, etc. And the controlled rollout, this is the #1 challenge that we're up against because it is exciting. It does tell you a lot. It does culminate years and years of knowledge in one document, but we are being very careful to roll it out with supervision on the 10 major sites like Dave was saying. We're going to continue to monitor those sites so we can get a consistent trend on it. And then we are working to put it into our into the Lockheed Martin corporate database so that someday the dream will be to have the smaller sites be able to use it and self-direct them. So that's where our challenges are lying. I am going to turn this back over to Dave and let him close out.
All right, great. Thank you, Scott. And I just want to take this time to thank you again, Scott, and the team for developing the playbook, and also to the Energy Star team, not only for the recognition as a Partner of the Year again this year, but also for putting this webinar together and providing us the opportunity to share what we feel is an exciting part of our new Go Green program. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Walt.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Scott and Kirby and Tom. We're going to move into the Q&A now, and again, if you'd like to ask a question, please feel free to do so and put your question